Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to Christ for Culture. We're looking forward to getting to know all of you guys and building a community.
And so on this podcast, we're just going to be talking about real life topics. So we're going to be talking about relationship with God. We're going to be talking about anxiety, just a plethora of things. So tune in. And also, we filmed an introduction video. So you can actually pause this video right now and go look at that. You get a full background on all of us, why we decided to start this, and then tune back into this one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Christ for Culture podcast. I'm your moderator, Kent Nolan III. Good to have you here. Next to me, my man, my bro. What's your name, sir?
My name is Josh.
Josh. And then over in Indy on the other side of things, Jazz, you can start it off.
I'm Jazz.
I'm Shay.
I'm Dawn.
I am Micaiah.
Hey. And also over in St. Louis, or Missouri, to be more specific. Kellen, you can start off.
I'm Kellen.
And I'm Courtney. Hey, y'all.
And we are Christ for Culture. Good to see you again. Good to be here. Another episode 3. Today's topic.
Welcome to the pod.
Okay, Dawn. She in it. We're dealing with healing from broken relationships, dealing with and healing from broken relationships. We've already touched on in a past episode the importance of having a relationship with God, how important it is, and it was in having a relationship with Him. Long story short, it's incredibly necessary. Through Him, we also have the chance to form relationships with one another. This podcast is an example of such relationships, what can come out of it, the good, the godly that can come out of it, and how things can be formed on it. But what happens when in a relationship becomes fractured? We've seen examples of this in the Bible, how it can occur. Jacob and Esau come to mind. What happens throughout the fracturing and how reconciliation can take place or not take place. We all have a variety of relationships, family, friends. We have past and current people we've dated, attempted to date. We even have relationships that have been formed with coworkers, whether we wanted them to or not. But as I turn to all of you here, I want to ask first off, how do we even get to this point? Like, how do we get to fractures in relationships? Is it as simple as maybe disagreements, maybe a growing dislike over time, or is there something maybe deeper that kind of maybe festers and it comes to the point where we go, yeah, this isn't working with whatever relationship we're in? Anyone can start, but yeah, how do we even get here?
I would like to start is, how did that relationship form? Where did it form at? How did you meet that person? Maybe it started off, some people hiding some things and then they finding out later on. That's something that, usually always want to look at in a relationship. How did that relationship form? So
Gotcha.
That's just another way, the best way I would, kind of analyze it.
That's good. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then with all these different types of red flags and everything, I think if I can think of an example from my time, I think a lot of the stuff I noticed Josh was touching on when you form a relationship. When I was unsaved, I had a lot of relationships where you can kind of tell in the beginning, maybe this probably shouldn't form.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was not of the mind to even think of it, I was just like, whatever. Maybe it was formed because of drinking. Maybe it was formed because of this or that.
Right.
But then over time, especially as I got saved, I noticed that in a way, this is kind of fracturing too. It doesn't have to be a major fracture, but drifting away over time, kind of going away. Like, I'm going down this route, they're going down this route, and they may not understand why I'm going down this path, but because I just want to be more, again, saved, more sanctified, I want to clean myself up. I don't want to cuss anymore. I don't want to do this and that. Others that you may have had friendships, whether it was maybe an acquaintance or, again, a deeper friendship, they recognize that maybe you're not the same person I knew. Yeah. And you're like, well, that same person you knew is dead. That person you knew is dead. And from there is, like I said, it's not a major fracture point. It could even be reciprocal, but that can be kind of just like, again, we just go our separate ways. That can be a fracture in his own self. So I kind of have those type of examples. Anyone else kind of have like maybe certain ones, or do you kind of see where I'm kind of going from?
I want to touch on what you're saying just real quick, that I don't know have y'all noticed somebody or heard of somebody, like when they had some, like a broken bone or something that was fractured, it grew back stronger.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when you have those fractured relationships, in that instance where you know, you're going one path, somebody's going another path, and you realize you can't grow with that friendship anymore or that relationship,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's hindering your growth. And so when you fracture and you know that relationship parts, you be able to grow stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
and you begin to, you know, grow in God or get other relationships that can help you grow. And, you know, I just think that's just another part of looking at, that's an example of, you know, how it works with our, you know, our body, and also with relationships.
That's good.
Mhm.
That's
It's
good.
real good. Yeah, I've had multiple relationships to where, like you said, KO, where you're kind of just going in different paths. Not that like anybody necessarily did one thing that was just like it. No, I have had some relationships like that as well, but typically it's like it has to do also with going down different paths in life, different motivations, desires, growing or not growing in different ways. And not every relationship, I would say, is to, I don't want to say like it's because I don't want to say just because somebody doesn't benefit you, quote unquote, anymore, that you have to let them go or cut them off, because sometimes you are absolutely assigned to people's lives and you are in people's lives and they may not necessarily benefit your life, but you're supposed to benefit theirs. So I'm not saying that, but when they're hindering you or causing fractions and friction in the relationship and in your life, then I think that's when it becomes more problematic. And over time, you actually just do part and go separate ways. So yeah, I would say I agree with that because I've had multiple relationships like that. Still love the person to death. Some of them, multiple ones. But I think we both realized we were going down different paths in life.
That makes sense.
I think I also want to address relationships where either you wronged somebody or the other person wronged you. Like it's not necessarily going, I guess, like in separate paths. Um, I guess I'm saying, like, for example, it could be a family relationship, and maybe this is something that happened to you as a child.
Mm,
Um, and, you know, seeking God for healing over those things because you can't change the person, but
mm,
you still have to, I guess, love that person. You know what I mean? Like, you can't
mm,
change who that person is, but you still have to love them. I think that that's something. I don't know. You guys can chime in too, because this is a topic that's kind of hard for me to talk about. So, but
mm,
just seeking God in those situations and figuring out how to work through that when there is no resolution with that person specifically. So, yeah.
I
That's
think that the main focus has to be you got to forgive that person,
Right.
and if you're the person that wronged them, you got to ask and seek for forgiveness too. Not
Right.
saying that if it's, you know, a broken relationship and a family member, y'all may not still fellowship the way that you used to, but the starting block is forgiveness to be able
Absolutely.
to heal properly.
Right.
I think that that's so important, like in the forgiveness, like healing process, like for yourself, like if you were wronged by somebody, like a family member or something like that, at least for me, it's been super helpful to, you know, try to, because everyone has a story, right? Like everyone
mhm,
has a past and things that they've gone through. So it's like having an understanding, or, you know, like gaining an understanding of, okay,
mhm,
what caused them to start acting this way,
way.
like behaving this way, because it comes from something,
Right.
you know, there's
absolutely.
It does.
roots to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you gain that understanding, it can help you. Because I would ask the Lord, like, Lord, soften my heart, like towards this person, help me to see them,
Mhm,
you know, how you see them, help me to have an understanding, help me to have empathy for this person. And it's like once that starts to, like form within yourself, then you're able to have more empathy for them. And, you're able to start healing from those hurts, and obviously we know that this is kind of like a broad topic because there could be certain things that are just, like so bad that not necessarily the relationship is meant to be repaired, but it's just for your
Right.
own like personal, like healing, forgiveness, so that you can continue to move on and doesn't hinder you, like on your path, that God has for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, Courtney.
Yeah. And I feel like for me right now, like I'm sort of like in a sensitive place in my life because I'm getting married. So like I analyze my family relationships.
Yeah.
Like I'm analyzing like all of my family relationships like really closely, And it's like I don't know, just like I completely like 100% agree and clearly I've been through those things, but it's just sometimes it's like, I was not expecting to get emotional on this podcast, but anyways.
It's okay.
Very good.
It's okay.
But
Take your time.
just like seeking God, like forgiving, but also understanding, like, I could be starting a family, but those people may not be involved,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I
It
think
is.
it's okay
Yeah.
to like mourn that,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
thing
it's not
is
an
that,
easy process.
It's
right,
not,
Absolutely.
because it's like you do desire. It's like if you don't have like a relationship with like your parents or like your
right,
sister, something like that. It's just like, and it can be more, it can be difficult as well. Like when you see others who do have good relationships with those people that you desire, to have like those bonds with, but it just, played out how it played out. So I think that I do feel like you should. I feel like it's a release as well, like to like I guess quote unquote, like have like a sadness or like mourn those
Yes,
relationships.
absolutely.
right,
Yeah. It's like a release for you so you're not holding that in.
Right.
Absolutely.
healthy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
I
that's
was
a
gonna
new
say that
emotion for
too.
me.
No, that's real though, because I think that at least like even when I was talking about some relationships that go in separate ways, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that some relationships you need a season of mourning for those relationships. You have to allow yourself to experience the grief. You have to allow yourself to experience all the raw emotions that go into that, or else you're doing yourself a disservice in the forgiveness process.
Right.
You have to explore those feelings. Why do I feel this way? Why does it hurt me? At least for me, I know that can be hard at times because like I'm like quick to like, let's go to head, let's go to logics, let's think this through. And too much emotion gets sticky for me.
Yeah.
And then going into the weeds, it gets sticky for me. Because sometimes I have to stay in that emotion, talk through that emotion with God. And it gets ugly sometimes, but I think that that's absolutely part of the mourning and forgiveness process. And I don't think that should be negated.
Great point.
Yeah.
All right, Kay, you can go to your next question.
No, you good. I'm glad that you stayed on that, and that's all right. Yeah, that's good to feel that way,
Yeah.
Kellen, and good to talk on that. It's good to
Yeah.
explain on that and how you feel, and I'm glad that you were able to touch on that. I think when it comes to that type of stuff, and when it comes to just the fracturing, is how do we go about that with God? How do we go about that with God? Like, how can we? Is it possible to ruin fractured relationship? Is it possible to ruin a relationship with God, or is that even a possible thing?
Yes.
It is.
I'm gonna say yes too.
Yeah.
I think you can run away from God. Like God could be showing himself to you, like presenting himself to you, and you can run away from it.
Absolutely.
I also think you can distance yourself from God with sin. Like he can't be a part of your sin. So if you're sinning, that's, in my opinion, fracturing your relationship, breaking your relationship with God.
Yeah.
I went through a period of that when I was in college. I don't know if a lot of people, like a lot of you guys know this, but I gave my life to Christ when I was going into my senior year of high school. So when I went to college, I think I kind of became distant from God at certain points during that journey. And then I had to get out of that environment in order to, regain that closeness. So, but I never lost my relationship with God. I just was prioritizing, like fun and certain, like what I perceived to be fun at the time.
Right.
And,
Right.
as I guess I was prioritizing myself over God, and that's really what it was. So
And sometimes God, I mean, God will allow us to go through those things. He'll allow us to go through that part of our life to let us know, hey, you really do need me more than what you think. So sometimes, because sometimes we'll stray away a little bit, and I wouldn't say stray away, but I would say we would think we got it. We like, God, I got this at this point. I mean, I'm good right now. I'd let you know when I need you here in a little bit,
right.
instead of letting God take full control and being consecrated to Him. And same thing with our relationships. Sometimes we get, we have friendships that sometimes some people they want to do something a certain way. They don't like how you view things. You guys get in a disagreement, and instead of just throwing that relationship away, we just have to let them. Okay, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to say, hey, look, I think this is my way's better. I think we need to, we're not going to let this come in between us. But I'm praying for you. This is where you want to go. This is what you want to do. Hey, I still love you, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna just throw them away for that. And then sometimes when they realize, hey, this was not the best decision, or this was not the best way of thinking. For you to, it's just like how God is with us. For you to stay there and not throw them away, when they come back, they'll love you even more.
Yeah.
You see, and that helps them even love you. That helps them love you and want to stay in a relationship even more. And sometimes it's hard to do, but that's the human heart is, and that's how we are sometimes. And God, what God does, take back the backslider. He does. But
He does.
but we it's hard for us to do that. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But we want to look at everybody. Oh, they're wrong, and they're this and this. Yeah, but sometimes we need to humble ourselves and realize I'm not perfect. But
No.
if I can humble myself, and would this make this relationship better if I was to do that, allowing them to come back, letting them know I love them even more, would that make the relationship stronger?
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes us to mature to get to that level. And like Kellen was saying, sometimes it takes you going away a little bit and just, hey, I'm good. I'm not throwing a relationship away, but you just like, I just want to do my own thing. And you realize, hey, God, your way was the best all the way along. I'm staying right here. I'm staying consecrated.
Always.
And Lord, just continue to lift me up and build me. And our relationship is going to grow further from here on out.
Yeah. So good. So good. Go ahead, Cora. I see you're talking.
I was gonna let you go.
No.
Everything.
Well, what Josh was saying, when you were saying, it's just like we have to humble ourselves and realize, that we're not perfect. Like maybe, if there was a fractured relationship or something, and then, forgiving that person, and, God's calling you to still be in their lives or whatever that is. But it made me think of an example of someone that I know who his daughter has been in prison for years. I can't remember how many years. But she was on drugs, and, like before she went to jail, she, did a number of things that, like fractured their relationship and like her relationship, with other people in the family, like friends and, what have you, because of the addiction. And so she ended up going to jail, and she just got released 2 days ago. And so it's been really hard for him to deal with that. But I was speaking to him, he was saying, he's like, that's my daughter. I have to be there for her. If I'm not there for her, like who else will be there for her? And I think that's so powerful, because it's just like you showing up for someone despite what they've done past, like despite, those things that, were not good in the past, despite that, like that can change the trajectory of their whole life.
Yeah.
Like you showing God's love to that person, that's you exhibiting, being an example of God's love for that person. And it could be, like the it could be, the cause of them, like whether going back to, a certain life because they don't feel supported, they don't feel loved,
That is
they
so
don't
true.
have anyone to lean on, or them completely being transformed and prayerfully, coming to Christ, coming to the Lord, through you showing them goodness and love and support and
That's
all
true.
of those things. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
That's
is
awesome.
good. I know, like for me, for both of those points, like it's so funny because like it was either this year or late last year, but I was getting really frustrated with somebody, and like irritated. I'm like, come on, like this, come on, this isn't right. Stop acting like this. Let's get it together, okay? And then I remember I messed up, right, on this old wicked flesh of mine, and I messed up. I sinned, and this is something that shouldn't be happening. I'm too grown for this. So I'm like, I'm in a different place with God. This should not be happening, right? This is my mindset. And so I go back to God, tail tucks, you're supposed to come boldly to the throne. I'm talking it out with him. And then, he's being all loving and gracious and merciful. And I'm like, I don't understand why you love me. I don't get it. But then in that moment, I thought about that person that still needs love, that's still human too, that makes mistakes like me. And God should have thrown me away time and time and time and time and time and too many fingers to count again, but hasn't, right? And it made me think of this person and how God was loving on me and being gracious to me and merciful towards me. And he was like, now go do that to such and such. And I was like, bet. Hard. It's really tough. But I will say that I'm in a different place with God and maturity. And so I can have that dialogue. I can see it clearly now and I can actually go do that. Now, years ago, I don't think it would have been the same conversation and I would have seen it the same way. But like with Josh's point, what he was saying, like when you mature in Christ and see how God loves us, and sometimes you have to show that love to other people. And like what Courtney said too, they can be in our immediate relationships, just not necessarily as big as like the daughter that went to jail, but just feeling wronged time and time again. Think about how you wrong God time and time and time again in your speech, in your actions, against your flesh. Like,
Criticizing yourself.
yeah.
And Don, the example you had is so good because you got to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit, and when God tells you, because when he's talking to you at that moment, you could have ignored that and been like, I'm not going to, talk to that person. And I'm not going to go back and, mend that relationship or whatever. But you chose to do that. What you did was you mend the relationship, and then also God was proud. If you wouldn't have done that, then you probably would have stopped the growth with the Lord. I mean, with him. So yeah, because when we do, I mean, we don't think about that stuff, but that little stuff like that, God takes that serious. I mean, because there's some people that still are in the same place in God because they can't do that. They can't get past that point. Just little stuff like that. They can't get past that. They can't get past that barrier right there. And it's something simple like that they can't grow in because they can't humble themselves.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And that's
that word.
It seems small, but that is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you don't,
I have a question. Oh, sorry, Josh.
Oh, you want my back?
I'm sorry. I got to interject because I think so my question is, what if you are not at that point? Like you're being completely honest with yourself. I'm not at this point of forgiveness. I want to be there, but I'm not.
Well,
what do we do in that instance?
As long as you,
because that's very real.
Yeah. As long as you are honest with God, Because as long as you can hear God's voice tell you, hey, you got to work on this, and you're honest with God and say, God, I will take. I mean, because think about it. How do you get? Let's just talk about how do you get from not being able to forgive and then go straight to forgiving them? How does that work? Can some people go? Is there a process? Or can you just go straight from not doing that to doing it? Or does God take you through tests? You know what I mean? But
You can go first.
You know.
I think it depends on the situation, because there have been situations where I've had to forgive somebody where it was a release. Like I was sitting with God, talking to God about this situation, and I had a release, and I was able to forgive that person in that moment. Like God blessed me with that, that gift of, I perceive it as a gift, because I feel like our own ability, we just can't do it, especially like some stuff is just so deep, you cannot do it by, you just can't do it.
Amen.
So I think that is possible, but I think in other situations it's a process.
Yeah, I would
So
say,
especially when somebody's a repeat offender.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes, it's perfect
That-
that you
yeah.
said that, because I was going to speak from my own experience, like with the process. So, and just what I did, and or what the Lord did, what He led me to do. But I remember when it was like freshman year of college, like going into sophomore year or something, but I was in a really, really low space, like really low point, and like depressed and all of this. And I didn't even realize I was depressed. But so I was just like, I just remember I was just like crying to the Lord one night, because I had created just like a hardness over my heart, right? Like a coldness, and because I didn't want to feel the emotions that I was feeling. And so I remember I was just like living my life, like not really understanding, or I didn't have the awareness of what was happening like in me, and like the detriment that it was causing me, and like my relationships, and just like in me in general. And so I remember the Lord like started speaking to me. He's like, Courtney, this is not right. Like, like the way that you're feeling, the way that, like you're perceiving certain things, like the way that you're thinking, it's not right. So I remember that I was just like, there was one moment where I just like broke down, like crying to the Lord, because I was just like, Lord, I don't want to be this way anymore. Like, I don't want to feel this way. Like, I don't want to have this wall up. I don't want to, like always be on guard, like in an unhealthy way. It's like, Lord, I don't know what to do, to fix this, like to change this. Like, I can't do it. I need you to do it. So what He had me do is that every single day, I would pray this prayer, basically like saying to like melt my heart. And it was a whole prayer, but that was like the gist of it. Like ask the Lord to melt my heart. And I would do it every single day. And then all of a sudden, I literally felt my heart like just open, like open back up and like melt, like it felt soft, like I felt softness. And sometimes that's what it takes.
And I'm, oh my goodness, Courtney, that's crazy, because I've experienced kind of the same thing a little bit.
Really?
But I actually felt my heart like get harder, like
Wow.
I felt I felt my chest like really like getting like, it was like really hard. And I know, and it was only at the time when when somebody did something to me, and I just held that in and didn't, had unforgiveness.
Yeah.
And kind of the same thing on Courtney. And he'll just like, when you're intentional about that, when you go through the process, talking to God, you tell Him, hey God, do this for me, and when you go to God consistently like that, he will help you, and but you got to talk to Him, you got to tell Him, hey God, this is what I need.
Absolutely.
Right. And then when the time presents itself for you to do that, do what you can,
Yeah.
So if, for instance, somebody comes to you and be like, somebody
That's
do you
good.
wrong and you're not there yet. I mean, you know, you're growing, you're not there yet. You say a prayer in your heart. God, I'm sorry. You know, but do what you can until God ultimately melts it all
That's
away.
good.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm not
Yeah.
there yet." Don't take no steps. Don't say
Yeah.
your prayer. You're just going
Yeah.
about your day. Well, I can't do it.
Right.
Right.
You got to be deliberate about this thing. You know what I mean? And so, just like Courtney said, that's the way
good.
God will
That's
do it.
good.
Right.
Forgiveness is difficult. I think he's always pleased when we're making progress. And we're making progress when we're being, like Josh said, intentional about it. When we keep making those steps to make sure that we're praying and we're asking the Lord, like, Lord, I need help to forgive this person. I'm struggling. As long as you're honest about it, I feel like he'll, you know, that's the part that we can do. And then God will take it from there.
Man, that's so true. I'm one of the people that had a really hard time forgiving. Like that was just not my thing. I could not do it. I just couldn't do it. Every single time I would go to prayer, no, God, I can't do it. And then I just go on about my way. Until one day I went up for prayer and I'm like, I need to ask God for forgive, or I need to ask him to help me to forgive. And so I went up for prayer, and the person praying for me was like, you need to communicate that to God. You need to talk to him and tell him the reason why you feel like you can't do it, and then he'll help you. And so what you're talking about, Courtney, is just that process. And every day I would say, God, I need you to help me take this away, or help me to try and at least forgive. Is there something I can do? But it was just communicating that to God, and eventually he softened my heart to the point I didn't even recognize me. I'm like, dang, I ain't never been this soft, Lord.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to part 1 of this episode. We hope you've enjoyed what you've heard so far. So much so that you'll tune in next week for part 2. Same time, same place.
Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, and make sure you follow and rate us on all our media platforms so you can be notified and help our algorithm. We pray you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time.